But for someone at home who is looking to take some simple steps to, I guess, improve their gut health or rather just improve their life in general, what are some good starting points? Is it as simply as obviously read your book, Super Gut, which I recommend everyone listening? What else is there? Is there a protocol? Is there like a, just do these three things to start with? What would you recommend?
It's a work in progress as the science and experience improves. But right now, we know that those fermented foods are critical. They are really, really important. And I mean several servings a day, not big servings necessarily. It could be a couple tablespoons of kimchi. It could be if you ferment pickles, just drinking the juice or eating some of the pickles. By the way, if you buy commercially fermented foods are becoming more and more available. So you can buy sauerkraut and fermented pickles and such. What I do when somebody has a factory making these things, they're going to go as fast as possible because that's how you make money. So what I do is I take a commercially fermented food, like let's say kefir, leave it on a kitchen counter for another 48 hours or longer to allow it to ferment long. Most fermented foods are fermented by microbes that do well at room temperature. So those microbes I mentioned, Leuconostoc, Pediococcus, they ferment at about 70 degrees, give or take. You can do it right on your kitchen counter. When we get into the species like Lactobacillus reuteri, Lactobacillus gasseri, Faecalibacter, those are microbes that really like human body temperature. And that's where we need a device to ferment it, like a yogurt maker, a sous vide device, an instant pot, something like that. And so we can ferment it because those they do better. They reproduce faster at human body temperature. So it really helps to get that in your head. That is, there's room temperature fermenting microbes in fermented foods. There's human body temperature fermenting microbes that we make our yogurts and other fermented foods in a device. That really helps. So fermented foods, hands down, the most important thing. People say, "Oh, don't talk to me about these things. I take a probiotic." A probiotic is the least important thing you do because they're so haphazardly formulated that it's just throw a bunch of stuff at you. So they're helpful, but they're not as helpful as they could be. So as the probiotic formulation improves, they will become more important. But right now, a commercial probiotic is helpful, but not that helpful. So fermented foods. Next, in my mind, is restoring some of those lost by keystone microbes. Luke, what I mean is, so plankton in the ocean, little tiny creatures, right, are consumed by filter feeding creatures like whales and jellyfish. What if there is a reduction in plankton? And by the way, that is happening with the warming of the oceans. You're going to lose the whales and the jellyfish because plankton are foundational or keystone. Well, the two most important keystone microbes you can add back, Lactobacillus reuteri, our good friend, and Lactobacillus gasseri. There are others, but those two alone, it's like if we caused a bloom in plankton, you'd have lots more jellyfish, lots more whales, and successful other species. Same thing here. We're going to replace, and that list is going to grow over time. How to replace it, we're going to have to adjust. No one wants to make 14 yogurts. But right now, doing reuteri, doing gasseri, and by the way, doing reuteri and gasseri using my method of extended prolonged fermentation. We sometimes add a strain of Bacillus coagulans also. I call it SIBO yogurt. I call it that because, to my great surprise, Luke, when you have SIBO, it can be very difficult to eradicate. That is 24 feet of microbes in the small intestine, fecal microbes. It makes you sick. It could be obesity, it could be depression, could be anxiety, could be rosacea, whatever. So tough to get rid of. You can take an antibiotic like Xifaxan. Now, wait a minute. If antibiotics got us here, do you really want more antibiotics? So I asked this question: What if I had SIBO and I took a commercial probiotic? Will the SIBO go away? No. That's quite clear. You might reduce bloating or diarrhea temporarily, but the SIBO won't go away. So I asked this question: What if we chose species and strains that are known to colonize the small intestine where SIBO occurs? And what if we chose species and strains that are known to produce what are called bacteriocins, natural antibiotics? So Lactobacillus reuteri, Lactobacillus gasseri, both colonize the small intestine and produce a ton of bacteriocins. I added Bacillus coagulans because it has an excellent track record of reducing the symptoms of irritable bowel syndrome. IBS is essentially SIBO in most cases and produces two bacteriocins. So we co-fermented it as those three, extended fermentation, so really big, 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 big numbers.
Mm.
And to my great, I did that in the hopes that it would do some of the agony, the aggravation, and discomfort of SIBO. To my great surprise, 90% of about 50 people who've done this convert to negative. And I say convert to negative because we have this air device now that tests hydrogen gas. If you want to confirm the SIBO, I don't think you have to do this, but if you want to, you can buy the air device. You blow into it, it registers 0 to 10 on your smartphone. It tells you whether you have SIBO or not. But it's a mapping device. There's a whole way to do this. So if somebody wants to do this, I would just, it's in my Super Gut book. If you buy the device, the instructions aren't quite right. I called the inventor, Dr. Angus Short. He's a PhD engineer, and he thought it was just for IBS and a low FODMAP study. So I told him, no, 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 this is a mapping device. So they're changing their instructions. But right now, if you want the proper instructions, it's in the SuperGut book to use it as a mapping device to tell you where microbes are living. But so far, of about 50 people who've done this, to my great surprise, 90% have converted to hydrogen gas negative. Now, I
Mm.
think it's more towards 100% if you do it longer than 4 weeks. But I regret calling it SIBO yogurt, Luke, because it sounds like it's a treatment for SIBO. What it is restoring keystone microbes. And among the effects is pushing back the fecal species that don't belong in your small intestine and then continue it intermittently after it, maybe 3 times a week, something like that, forever. At least until we figure out what you're concerned about. How do we make it take up residence permanently? Don't know yet. So what we do is consume it intermittently because once you've had SIBO, for unclear reasons, it loves to come back.
Mm. And for those listening, SIBO is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Just in case people need to know. Quick
Which, by the
questions.
way, if you look at all the evidence, US, Canada, Australia, I believe 50% or more of the population has it. We're not talking, I used to think it was rare. It's not rare. It's extremely common. It's among the biggest epidemics for humans ever in the history of our species on this planet.
Wow.
Now, the conventional doctors will start to talk about it as because the evidence is now overwhelming because now there's a drug for it, Xifaxan. So in the US, where they run these ridiculous drug ads on TV, they're talking about Xifaxan for IBS, not telling you, well, if IBS responds to an antibiotic, doesn't it tell you it's a microbial problem, right? They don't tell you that part.
Thanks for watching this clip of the Getting Mental podcast. If you like this clip, check out the full episode here or more clips here.